Hey guys, it's Sydney from S. Montgomery Admissions Consulting. If you're a rising junior or senior, or maybe you're just the parent of one, and you're wondering how to go about approximating your financial aid, you've come to the right place. This is going to be part one of a video series on financial aid as we go into the fall. Once a month, I will talk on another area of financial aid, so definitely come back. But this video will give you an overview of just the basics that you need. Hey guys, so today I'm going to walk you through in 3 steps how to calculate and estimate the net price of a college. Now, some of you may be like, what's a net price? The net price is the price that you actually pay rather than the sticker price of the college. The net price equals the cost of attendance minus the estimated financial aid. Now, you may be wondering, okay, but how can you calculate the net price without knowing how much financial aid you're going to get? Sometimes I think we feel like we fill out financial aid forms and then we put it into this black box, this vortex, and then we wait, and then a mystery number pops out. But I promise you there are definitely ways to estimate this number. It's not as smoke and mirrors as it may seem sometimes. And if you stick around until the end of the video, I will give you an example using actual numbers of how to figure this out. So, the first step that you need to do is to determine your family's expected financial contribution. So, what does that mean? Well, actually, the first place I'd go to the Fafsa Forecaster. And the Fafsa Forecaster estimates your eligibility for federal aid in either federal loans or Pell Grants. And even if you don't think that your family will qualify for federal funding, it's a really, really good place to start. So it asks a series of questions similar to the FAFSA, and the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid, and it determines the type of amounts of federal aid a student may or may not qualify for. The Fafsa Forecaster will also give you that phrase that I said, your family's expected family contribution. Your expected family contribution is the amount of money that your family is expected, theoretically, to be able to afford to contribute to college costs for 1 year. The government is saying, we think your family can pay this. Now, it's important to note that your expected family contribution figure may change, and it may change depending on what formula the particular college or university is using. So some schools only require the FAFSA in their financial aid applications. So they use the federal methodology. Many colleges, however, especially selective colleges, will require that you complete the College Board's CSS Financial Aid Profile in addition to the FAFSA. Now that CSS Profile uses what's called the institutional methodology to calculate your expected family contribution. So, for this reason, there's 2 different methodologies. I usually advise families to go on both sites. Go on the Fafsa Forecaster and get your EFC there, and then go on the College Board's EFC calculator. Because sometimes the expected family contribution is actually higher when using the CSS Profile or institutional methodology. And a lot of this is because that model takes into account some other sources of income, such as non-custodial parents, step-parent, home equity, student earnings from the summer. The FAFSA asks far less questions about that. Now, once you have your EFC, the next step is to determine if you should focus on schools that give more need-based or more merit-based aid. If your expected family contribution is high, the government thinks you can pay a lot of money, obviously you should not expect to receive a lot of need-based aid. But that doesn't mean that you can't get money. You need to be putting schools on your list that are known for giving merit-based aid. And the largest source by far of merit-based aid comes from the institutions themselves. So you want to make sure that you are picking schools that are generous with their merit aid. And I'll talk in another video about how to find that out. And of course, you want to make sure that you qualify for that merit aid. So if it's academics, if it's the arts or athletics, you want to make sure that you're meeting the criteria for those scholarships. If your expected family contribution is low or 0, the federal government or the schools do not expect your family to be able to contribute a lot to school, then you want to look at schools that have a higher percentage of need-based aid. They meet a higher percent of your demonstrated need. That expected family contribution number factors into demonstrated need, and I'll go into that very shortly. So this is step 2, right? Step 1, we found our expected family contribution. Step 2, we are figuring out what types of schools we need to be looking at. And so again, if you're a family with a low expected family contribution number, you want to be looking at schools that are very generous with need-based aid. Sometimes it actually doesn't help you to look at schools that are generous with merit-based aid, especially if it's more merit-based aid than need-based aid, because a lot of times that aid actually goes towards full-pay families as a way to incentivize them to send their students there. And I know this is very counterintuitive. If you need a lot of money for college, you're like, well, I want to go to a school that gives a lot of scholarships. But you really need to look at where those scholarships are coming from, because if they don't meet a lot of demonstrated need, if they're not giving a lot of money in need-based aid, and they're giving almost all of their money to scholarships, for academics, for those merit-based opportunities, they probably are not going to be as generous if you're a family with really high need. Whew, that was a lot. If you're still with me, definitely give yourself a pat on the back. I am going through this very quickly. I promise I break this down much slower on my blog. Sometimes it's helpful to see it in writing. If you're feeling like you're a little lost, you're like, I don't know, you're saying a bunch of numbers, you're saying a bunch of words, don't worry. I promise I'll have more videos. And like I said, I break this down a lot more on my blog. I'm a visual learner. I need to see things myself. But if you're still with me, congratulations, because now we are coming to step 3, and step 3 is putting it all together with some real numbers. So I have with me my whiteboard, and we're just gonna do this. I'm gonna be writing upside down, but it's gonna be a fun time. So let's say you wanna go to Sunnyside University, and Sunnyside University is $70,000. Okay. Now let's say you calculated your expected family contribution, just like we said earlier, and your expected family contribution was about $15,000. Again, that means that the government or the schools think that you and your family should be able to afford $15,000 a year. So the first question is, what is your demonstrated need? Your demonstrated need is the cost of attendance minus your expected family contribution, because the demonstrated need is the amount of money based on these equations that your family will need. So your demonstrated need is $55,000. I hope everyone is with me so far. We took the cost of attendance, we calculated our expected family contribution, it's a little sloppy because I'm writing upside down, and we subtracted the cost of attendance minus our expected family contribution to get our demonstrated need. Great. Now, what do we do with that number? I'm gonna flip my pen over. So, let's say you also researched and you found that Sunnyside meets 70% of demonstrated need. So with this, actually you'll be able to figure out how much financial aid you might get from Sunnyside. It's just an approximation, but 70% of 55,000 is $38,500. So Sunnyside University is not meeting your full demonstrated need. Your family needs $55,000. That's the difference between how much the school costs and how much theoretically you're able to afford. They're not going to meet this whole $55,000. Sunnyside might give you $38,500 because that's 70%, and that's on average they meet 70% of need. Okay, so then how much does Sunnyside University cost you roughly? Sunnyside University is going to cost you roughly, you take the cost of attendance, $70,000, minus your financial aid. That's that formula from the beginning. That net price is cost of attendance minus financial aid. And that is going to give us $31,500 as our kind of net price. That is how much Sunnyside University is going to cost us every year. And you might be looking at me like, you are crazy. I cannot pay $31,000 every year. Thankfully, there are still ways to make this number lower by outside scholarships and merit aid. This is just need-based aid, right? This is solely based on a need-based formula. So now you can do this kind of with all your schools, which might seem like a lot. But if you do this with all the schools that are on your shortlist, then you can kind of start to see, okay, what can I expect to pay at certain schools? Because you can look at the sticker price, and if this were $70,000, or even if this were $80,000, but they met 90% of demonstrated need, then this number, the net price to you would actually be lower, even though the sticker price is higher. So sometimes you can't tell by the sticker price. This could have been $40,000, which is a lot less than $70,000, but maybe they meet no. They don't give need-based aid at all. So you're actually paying $40,000. And $40,000 is actually a lot more than this $31,500, even though it started at $40,000, and you're probably assuming that the $70,000 school is the more expensive school. So it can be a little misleading, the sticker prices that these schools have. You really need to figure out, well, how much is this school going to cost to me and my family? This is something that I do with my families. I help them navigate the different financial aid situations and applications, and also help them calculate the net price and estimate their financial aid so that we can have a clear picture. I can't stress it enough. You want to be putting schools on your list that you can afford. If you've done all the net price calculators and you look at the numbers and they're just not schools that are within your budget, it's better to find other schools that can be a really great fit that are within your family's budget. Now, if you are interested in having me help your family out and help figure out what your financial aid situation might look like, I encourage you to click the link below in the description, sign up for one of my free 30-minute information sessions, and I can talk to you about all the services that I offer and the financial aid and scholarship services that I offer as well. I will be doing more videos on financial aid, so make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel so that you get the alerts when new financial aid videos come out. That way you can stick around for more walkthroughs. The Fafsa application opens up October 1, but knowing these numbers now will help you be better prepared for the future. I'll see you guys next time.